The Brooklyn Nets, although they just blew up their roster, okay, are still a lot better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. Now, I know they haven't had this success yet, but also they have no chemistry together. They're just out there hooping right now. And I'm not a Brooklyn Nets fan by any means. I just think their future is much brighter than a lot of people are giving them credit for. And I also think the players on this roster are much better than they're getting credit for. And I think their future is very, very bright going forward. And I just want to shed a little bit of light on this, as I see really nobody talking about it, with good reason. Obviously, there's a lot more attention on the Kevin Durant trade to the Suns and the Kyrie Irving trade to the Dallas Mavericks, but no one's really talking about the Brooklyn Nets side of things and how I think that they set themselves up for the future in a very good way and might even be able to catapult their way to success in the very, very near future. So the first thing I really want to get in for Ville is going to be that the fact that they are from the top of their roster to the bottom of their roster, everyone on their team is at least average, which is pretty much, you can't say that about any other team in the entire NBA. Like, they're the only team that has a good role player at every single spot on the roster. All 15 spots are NBA level players, which cannot be said for basically any other team in the entire league. And to show you what I'm talking about, let's just go through all the players on their roster. To start with, they got Dinwiddie. Welcome back, Spencer Dinwiddie. You tried to leave, you can't leave. You're coming back. You have to stay. And Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the best role players in the entire NBA. He can score when he wants to. He's a very good passer, and he's just going to do anything you want him to do. And literally any team in the NBA would love to have a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie on their roster. And then they also traded for Mikal Bridges, the fish himself, and he is one of the best two-way players in the league. Last year, he was in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. He can give you about 15 to 18 points a game. He can score at all three levels of the floor while locking down the other team's best player as well, and is just one of the most underrated players in the entire league, and one day might even be able to get a Defensive Player of the Year award under his belt as well. And then also another player in that Kevin Durant trade was Cameron Johnson. And Cameron Johnson, the Afro, he is actually a very, very solid player. He is a three-point sniper. He can hit the shot from deep. He can hit a three. If you leave him open, he is going to hit it. Now, he does kind of struggle when it comes to being like a all-around scorer, but as a floor spacer, he absolutely excels in that aspect. And anytime you have a guy like Ben Simmons on the roster, you need as much floor spacing as humanly possible, because we know we're going to get to Ben Simmons, okay? Let's not even talk about it. But Cameron Johnson is another very underrated guy as well, and his defense is also slept on as well. The next guy we're going to be getting into is going to be Nic Claxton. He is a young center who is also in Defensive Player of the Year conversations this year, and is one of the best rim protecting guys in the entire league, hands down. He can still give you about 12 points every game. He's a double-double machine. He's going to give you about 2 to 3 blocks a game as well, and is just an overall unit of a player. And Nic Claxton is another guy that any team would love to have on their roster. And then in the Kyrie Irving trade, we have Dorian Finney-Smith, who is now on the roster, and Dorian Finney-Smith is just one of those guys that's going to be a vet. He's going to be a consistent presence on a team. He's going to be able to lead a team. He knows what to do, and he's just going to do anything you ask him to do, because that's the type of player he is. And I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but he is once again another player that anybody would love to have on their roster. And the fact that we are just now getting to Ben Simmons shows you how deep this roster actually is, because Ben Simmons is actually coming off their bench currently. Now, yes, obviously, he is not the Ben Simmons he was in his first few years of his career, but he is still an elite passer with elite defense that can guard pretty much every position on the court very effectively, and is, like I said, one of the best passers in the entire NBA still, and that is coming off of their bench. And if he can somehow, some way, just become a fraction of the Ben Simmons we once knew and loved at Philadelphia, he would be one of the best players once again in the league. Now, I don't think that will happen, but he is still, at his worst, an elite defender that is also a great passer. And even moving on from Ben Simmons, you have guys like Cameron Thomas, aka Mr. Ain't Shit Funny, aka Kyrie Irving, aka Steph Curry, all in one. Cameron Thomas, obviously that was a joke, but still Cameron Thomas is having the best stretch of his basketball of his career before the All-Star break. He's extremely young. He's shown that he has extreme offensive upside. Now, he's never going to be a great defender due to his size, but he could be a very good offensive player off of their bench for years and years to come. And it looks like they legitimately got a steal with Cameron Thomas in that draft just a few years ago. And then they also have Joe Harris, the whitest guy in the NBA, just a flat-out three-point shooter. If you leave him open, he is going to knock it down, and he's just one of those guys that you love to have on the floor when you have a guy, well, like Ben Simmons on your roster. And you probably know what I'm about to say, is a guy that almost any NBA team would love to have on their roster. And then even moving on past them, we have Royce O'Neal, a very solid two-way player who was a vital piece to the rotation when they still had Kyrie and Kevin Durant, and Royce O'Neal is having a very good year with them, and I'm sure will continue to get playing time with them as well. And then they have even their reserves like Day'Ron Sharpe, who although isn't the best player and he's still very young, he has shown his flashes. He's shown that he does have potential to do certain things when he gets time, but he just really struggles to get minutes due to how damn deep this team actually is. It is deeper than the damn ocean, okay? Because we're still not done. Then you have Seth Curry, an elite three-point shooter, one of the best in the league actually. He's an extremely good role player. I'm not even going to say it because you know what I want to say, but I'm not going to. He's just very, very good. Like Seth Curry, anybody would love to have him. Sorry, I had to say it. And then even like their reserves are Patty Mills. Patty Mills is a guy that doesn't even get minutes with them, but is a very good vet that's going to do anything you ask him to do. He can pass the ball, he can dribble, he can run an offense, he can do literally anything, and that is one of their last guys off their bench. Then also Yuta Wannabe, a very solid player who's having the best year of his career with the Brooklyn Nets. He's a great bench player, he's a great just chemistry guy, and he can also give you a bucket when he's in the game and just once again do anything you ask him to do. And then the last guy on this roster is Edmond Sumner. Now, Edmond Sumner is the most reserve of the reserve guys, but he is still a very solid reserve and is much better than many of the other NBA teams' 15th best players on their roster. And Edmond Sumner is, although not anything special at all, is still a very solid player that could give any team solid rotational minutes. And that is their 15th guy on their roster. And I just went through literally every single player on the Brooklyn Nets roster, and not one of them is a player that another team wouldn't at least want as a reserve or bench guy coming in on their rotation on a normal basis, which is extremely impressive, and you literally cannot say that about any other team in the entire NBA. And the reason I did go over every player on the roster is just to show you that this team is literally deeper than a damn porn star, okay? Like, this team is insanely deep, by far the deepest in the entire NBA, and they have the most quality depth as well. And the biggest reason I bring this up is because it gives them a very clear path into the future to show how they are going to build this team going forward. The first thing is the fact that they have literally three first round picks going into next year's first round, one of those being their own pick, another one being Philadelphia's, and another one being the Phoenix Suns. So although at least two of those picks won't be anything special, they are still 3 first-round picks that you can either trade or you can legitimately get 3 very solid guys that are going to help build your team going forward into the future. And then they also have their pick of the litter of who they want on their team as long-term role players. Now, they have the obvious ones. They're going to go with Mikal Bridges, probably going to keep Cameron Johnson, probably going to try to keep Spencer Dinwiddie around, but they have their absolute pick of the litter of role players that they want to build around going into the future, and that they want to try to put the direction of their team and determine what stars they want to bring in as well. And they're also probably going to have a good amount of cap space because they're not going to pay everyone on this roster. They're going to let a good amount of people leave because they would spend way too much money playing just average players if they tried to keep everyone. So I think for sure they're going to let probably about 4 or 5 of these players leave, but even then they're going to have a lot of money because even the players that they keep outside of like Mikal Bridges and Dinwiddie aren't going to be asking for that much money, so they should have a ton of cap space to bring in new players, and due to them being such a big market, it should be an attractive destination for big name free agents as well. And then also even in a trading aspect, they obviously have tons of prospects to trade. They have tons of picks, they have tons of role players, high quality guys, young guys that they can easily make a trade for at any point that they want. So I think they just have so many avenues that they can build this team. It is almost impossible for the Brooklyn Nets to mess this up going into the future. And I think give it 2 or 3 years, they're going to be once again a very scary playoff level team in the very, very near future. But unfortunately, guys, that's more for this video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think that the Brooklyn Nets in a few years are going to be very good? How good do you think they're going to be? Do you think their future is brighter than people are giving them credit for? What are your thoughts in the comment section below? If you like the point, hit the like button and subscribe button. I mean the absolute word to me, and I hope you have a blessed day, because I had a blessed day, so you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah, blah.